Hello everyone and welcome to Soul GPS, where we learn to take our life back in our hands after narcissistic abuse. Today I wanted to discuss with you the topic of fatigue and narcissistic abuse. So specifically what happens during the relationship with a toxic person and shortly after, while we're going through the process of grieving. Many of you have commented, and I can certainly relate to this, that one of the things that kind of stalls the process of our recovery is this nagging, chronic fatigue that settles in, which not only makes our state of mind really foggy, which is partly due to cognitive dissonance, which I have discussed in many of my previous videos, and I'm going to recap it a little bit here in this one too, but also due to a variety of other hormonal changes that take place during and after the abuse. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today. So cognitive dissonance is where we have had the belief of the person who's our abuser being really good to us, being our soulmate, being there for us because of maybe there's been a number of acts of kindness that they have done for us. You know, they have really succeeded in the love bombing stage in terms of making us feel really secure, making us feel really admired, loved, gave us all this attention. And then slowly they began to slip into this other personality, this other person, which was much more neglectful, critical, and then eventually abusive. So, and this is of course a model. I'm not saying that this is exactly what has happened to you, because there are always exceptions to the rule, but it more or less follows this pattern of very positive interaction, you know, kind of to the point of making you almost blinded to the truth of who they really are, so that you follow their every whim, and they can extract all forms of resources and supply from you during the relationship, right? So as they get more comfortable with you, the mask begins to slip, as we say. The Mr. Hyde starts to come out, and we're seeing a whole other person come through the mask of what we used to perceive as this perfect ideal lover, this perfect ideal partner. So the hallmark of abuse is this really nice person and then turning into this really mean person. So it's this kind and cruel or sweet and mean cycle. So once you're in that, you have these two opposing beliefs now going on in your head, and they're battling inside. And you know that one is true and the other one is true, but it's really difficult for a normal, healthy mind to hold on to both, two opposing beliefs, because normally in order for us to make a decision or to move forward in our life, we need to kind of follow a trajectory of, yeah, like this is positive, so I want more of this, right? Or this is negative, so I don't want that. This is how we learn to navigate. This is the GPS, right? That is guiding us through life. But when it all gets screwed up is when we have the two happening at the same time, and it keeps us stuck in this perpetual sense of like the snake biting its own tail. We're just going round and round and round in circles, never really making any progress. So we get stuck in a relationship that's toxic. Now, once the relationship is over, we continue being stuck in this. Now, in addition to that, so that's the mental side of things, which of course spills into the body, because the mind begins to secrete hormones. So now we're going to get into the physical domain. Begins to secrete hormones that then trigger all sorts of other chemical reactions. One of those chemical reactions is release of adrenal corticoid hormones. So what is that? So here's where we're getting into the domain of the HPA axis. I'm sure you may have heard about this if you've been doing your research into narcissistic abuse. So the HPA axis stands for hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. So these are the three glands that dance together that I'm going to explain to you. So in a normal, healthy organism, the hypothalamus constantly monitors, it scans environment for, you know, what's happening, if there's a threat, if everything is okay. It also keeps track of immunity and regulates our temperature depending on the environment we're in, and so on and so forth. And it also is receptive to a variety of hormones that are already circulating in our bodies. So it kind of regulates, it creates this state of comfort. So then it communicates with the pituitary gland, which is responsible for then creating these pre-hormones that then trigger all sorts of other hormonal releases. And normally there's a homeostasis that occurs in the body where things kind of just flow, and we have a nice state. It's a good managed state of calm where we have full access to our cognitive functions. We get things done. We have healthy relationships. Our body weight is nice and stable. We feel energized in the morning, and then in the evening we get tired. We have good night's sleep, and so on. If we're in an abusive situation, especially if it's chronic, if it's happening all the time, what occurs is then the hypothalamus lets the pituitary gland know that you're in a state of danger, that there's something going on that is, that needs to be taken care of. So what it then does is it sends it triggers the pituitary gland to produce a hormone, and I have written down what it's called. It's called the ACTH, which is the adrenocorticotrophin hormone. And it's the pituitary sends that hormone, and it then attaches itself to a receptor on the adrenal gland, and it produces cortisol, which is called a stress hormone, right? But if it's in normal amounts, it's not really a stress hormone. It's kind of a waking hormone. So it balances off melatonin, which is the sleep and relaxation hormone. So in the evenings, cortisol goes down and melatonin goes up, so we get tired and we have a good night's sleep. In the morning, as the sunrise begins to come up, what happens is the melatonin goes down and cortisol begins to kick in, so your eyes begin to flutter and you start to wake up. If this cortisol thing, doesn't shut down because you're always in a state of threat, then you're always in this PTSD state of constant vigilance. This is extremely exhausting to the body. Too much cortisol will trigger your body to release glucose, which is sugar, so that all your sugar stores are now going to be pumped into your blood. All this happens very quickly, so that you have enough energy to run from the threat. What that does is it ends up, if it happens over a prolonged period of time, is it ends up with you putting on weight or being unable to shed weight. So many of us, myself included, when we were who are not able to shed some of that extra weight. I've been battling with this for the last 15 years or so. I always had that extra bit of weight on me, and I was always wondering why. And the reason why I eventually came to conclude was stress. But what I didn't realize was that this stress was something that's been going on pretty much all my life. So my body was predisposed to always being in a hyper adrenalized state. Any little thing, little trigger in my environment, and I would be put on alert. And so what does that do? How do you feel after you eat a big meal? You feel really tired. Why? Because once you eat, the sugars in the food that's being digested is now being released to your bloodstream. If you have more than you need, which is often the case, none of us eat really, we should eat only a handful of food or something at a time, just enough to fill up our stomach. But we don't do that these days, we eat more. So what happens is we have this surplus of sugar in our blood, which then sends insulin that gets produced by our pancreas, but in the surge of insulin causes us to feel tired, because now it's doing all of this work, right? Our body is trying to regulate itself. There's a huge activity going on. So it takes away our energy from being able to, do regular tasks. Sometimes after lunch, honestly, I know if I have to go somewhere, work somewhere, do some kind of a regular task, I just don't feel like it. I feel like resting. I feel like sitting down and letting, the digestion take its time, so then, I can move and do other things, which is also why so many of us get crash after lunch. So in narcissistic abuse, that's why I'm trying to get with this, is that we're being assaulted from two sides. On one side, we have this cognitive dissonance that's already draining us, and on the other hand, we have this HPA axis that is overactive, and therefore we're constantly flooded with too much sugar, right? Because our body is ready to fight or flight, or freeze, and then we have these surges of insulin. this results, and this creates a negative feedback loop, or a positive feedback loop, negative consequences, but it keeps on perpetuating itself, because now the body is not in homeostasis anymore. So the hypothalamus again is like scanning and saying, okay, well, things are not right, something's off, so let's produce more of this, you know, let's try to get rid of this thing. So it just continuously compounds on itself. If it happens for a long time, it's like an overload, system overload. Things will start to break, you know, it's like tripping a switch, you know, there's going to be short-circuiting of certain things in the body. This is why we end up feeling so exhausted, and sometimes it can last a really long time. Sometimes it drags from our childhood. I know that was my case, because I was so used to, you know, encountering all of these toxic people all the time. I was always on guard, even though I didn't know it. It's like the body is sort of more intelligent. Woo, a little windy here. It's more intelligent than the mind, and so it knows, you know, when we need extra protection. So it kicks in all of those mechanisms. So this is why we feel so exhausted. This is why we feel so exhausted. This is why it can last a long time. This is why you know, we may have develop digestive problems. This is why we may not be able to shed the unwanted pounds. I'll tell you this: in the last couple of months, where I put up a really firm boundary with a family member, that was really the root of most of my trauma in my life. I started to notice something really interesting. I started to lose weight. I was still eating pretty much the same. In fact, I thought that I was eating more, but I had more energy, and it's like, I don't know, it's like a side effect, I think, of healing. So if you've been struggling with this most of your life, there is a way out of it. And I actually prepared 4 steps for you, 4 things you can incorporate into your healing process in order to help your body calm down and let this fatigue to subside. And so I have 4 steps, and actually a first step is kind of like a step 0. And step 0 is really important, and many of us overlook it because we want to so quickly get over this thing. I'm so sorry, there's suddenly so much activity on the road. Hopefully you can hear me. Step 0 is give yourself time to heal. This hormonal dysregulation started a long time ago, and it takes some time for the body to regain its equilibrium. So if I were you, after you've been through this abuse, I would really take time to, you know, not seek too many exciting interactions, you know, not seek another boyfriend or girlfriend, even though it might feel like you just kind of want to move forward and get over this, because most likely you'll keep repeating the same thing. It's a form of addiction. So take your time, step back, be with yourself, and let these hormones subside. It will take you maybe a few months, but you'll start to feel different, and you won't be going through this up and down, this spiky, constant roller coaster of emotions. There's a calm that will begin to settle in. With this calm, or while you're working on this and taking your time, motorcycles. Apparently this area is really attractive to motorcyclists. I think it's because of the mountains and the views. They really love it. So if you've been watching my videos from Slovenia, you've been hearing lots of this background noise. So next thing is protein. So as I was telling you that there's this whole thing with the sugar imbalance that occurs due to adrenal fatigue, right? Due to this adrenal overstimulation, which leads to adrenal fatigue. I would avoid really sugary processed foods because it will only make things worse. So instead, look into cutting down on fake sugar, especially. I would eliminate that completely from your diet and only eat whole foods, things like fruits and vegetables. And also look into adding more protein. I personally am what I call myself functional vegans. I don't eat very much meat, very little, like almost at all. So, but I eat eggs, which help me. I really like that. But so, or if you eat, if you're okay with eating meat, then of course lean, good quality meat will help you. Fish also. If you are a vegan or a raw vegan, I know there's some raw vegans watching my channel, then greens of course are a great source of protein, amino acids, and so on and so on. Also hemp seeds, flax seeds, certain nuts, although they also are pretty high on fat, so we just need to make sure that we're not overdoing the fat. Anyway, you get the idea. Protein and non-sugary foods, but rather whole foods, will help to calm the system down and re-regulate it. So this is on the body level. Now on the mental level is mindfulness. So when the HPA axis gets dysregulated and we get into these hyperadrenalized states, what happens is we tend to either disassociate, or we expect the worst to happen, or we ruminate on the past, which isn't here anymore, which pulls us away from the present moment safety. Or if we're not safe in the present moment, then we need to set boundaries, right? But regardless of where we are, if we are mindful, and if we know that we are just focusing on us being here now, we're training the body to sync up with the mind and not overreact to the hormonal overstimulation. So that can be really, really helpful. On the emotional level, I think what's really important for us is to really pay attention to the negative self-talk, because it's so deeply entrenched in our bodies, in our minds, in our bodies too, in our cells, because so many people have said so many terrible things to ourselves, and they've done it for so long that we have kind of taken the baton from them, and now we're doing the work of the abuser within our own heads. So it's very important that we cut this negative self-talk, we catch it, and we call it for what it is, which is basically, re-triggering, re-traumatization, flashback, CPTSD crash, and so on. It's the past invading our present moment. So we catch that, we realize that that's what's happening, and then we try to reframe it and say something really nice to ourselves, give ourselves a hug, and practice self-kindness. And finally, on a spiritual level, I think what will happen, that's one of the most amazing things that occurs during the healing from this abuse, is once we get a hold of the meaning of it all, which is how this experience has made us more compassionate, much more in tune with ourselves. And there's a great comment on one of my videos someone posted, which is that it makes us more than anything else aware of our own subconscious programs, of our own vulnerabilities, and of really how we view ourselves. And there's nothing better than having that experience to hold up a mirror. And I know the truth can be really frightening, and it can be really difficult to deal with, but without it, we can't move forward. So meaning is the spiritual aspect that we can bring into our healing, to realize that this is here to serve us. We can use this experience to our advantage. And I wish that to all of you, that moment of realization when it all clicks into place and you realize that this experience is actually a gift that is going to make you stronger, more confident, more self-aware, more compassionate, a human being. So I wish you swift healing, and but if don't rush this. This is not in any way to rush you, but in a way to reharmonize with yourself, and in a way to be really kind and patient. And sometimes our patience actually can, ironically, speed up our recovery, because we're no longer pushing ourselves. We set down the whip, we put down the self-criticisms, and then miracles can happen. And when a body is relaxed, things just kind of tend to take care of themselves on their own. So I wish you great moments of insight. I wish you moments of realizing that, this experience can really serve you. And I'm sending you a lot of love from Slovenia. My last couple of days here. Next time I'll probably come to you from Italy. So I wanted to send you my best. Again, thank you so much for watching, for subscribing, for leaving great comments, for sending me emails. It's all really just helps me to want to create more content and share my experiences with you more. So again, I wish you all the best. I'll catch you in another video, and in the meantime, keep tuning in to yourself and learning to listen to your intuition, so that your inner compass can continue to guide you. Thank you, and I will see you later. Bye.